Hey everybody, this is Sala. So in this JavaScript tutorial, we are going to develop an application that gives an illusion like we are working with two different pages. But in reality, we don't have multiple pages. We have different layers on a single page and control display property using JavaScript to create illusion like we are working with different pages. Have a look at an example. And I'm sure you have already seen such applications on the web. So here, this blue area is our first layer, and it seems like you're gonna provide your name and then click on the submit button. So when you click on the submit button, this blue layer disappears and another layer comes forward. So let me submit, and here you see. And when I refresh the page, I get the first layer back. It's a very simple and useful application and can be coded easily with some basic JavaScript and DOM knowledge. Let's now start the development of this application. I'm heading to my code editor. Here we go. To code this application, we need three files. One for HTML, one for CSS, and one for JavaScript. I have already created all these files. And here you see the index.html. So the first thing first, we must set up the HTML before we start writing the CSS and the JavaScript. I am working with two different layers, and a layer is simply a box. In other words, a block element. So we are going to create two layers with the help of div, and I call it blue layer. And the second layer is red layer. In the blue layer, we will code two elements, one text box with ID user name so that it can be selected by the JavaScript, and a button. So the text box and the button both have their ID value, and using these values we can select them in the JavaScript. And in the second layer, we are just going to display the name submitted by the first layer, I mean the blue layer. So we only need a paragraph element here with an ID like submitted name. And initially I put some text here so that we can write the CSS of this paragraph. That's it. We don't need more HTML. I'm showing you the very basic version of this application. When you code, you definitely enhance the application. Your layers gonna be different. You may have other elements in both the layers, but the concept and the program that shows and hides the layer will be the same. So now after the HTML, we need to write the CSS, and the CSS part is very important. But before we write some CSS, let's check the result of this HTML in the browser. So here we have the result. This is gonna be our first layer, and this one gonna be the second layer. So our CSS file is already connected to the HTML. Let's now go inside the style.css. So the first thing that we're gonna do is the basic reset. Now after the basic reset, I will select both the layers. This is our blue layer. So we have selected both the layers, and at the same time, I'm going to select the body element, right? Let's now start with the blue layer, and we are going to change this layer to look like a rectangular box. So we need a width. Let's take a width of 30%. Height. Let's have 150 pixels. And then we need a background color, padding, and border radius. By 2, padding 2 rem, and border radius, let's have 25 pixels, right? If I refresh the page, you will see some changes like this, and I want the elements to the center of the box horizontally and vertically. This can easily be done with the help of flex. So to the blue layer, We'll say display flex direction should be column, justify content center, align items center, and we can put some gap between the text box and the button. So we can call the gap property. Let's say 10 pixels. So let's now refresh the page, and you can see all the elements are center aligned. We can put some styles on the text box and the button. So we need to write two more selectors, one for the text box and one for the button. So to the button, I will give some padding, 0.5 rem, font size to 1.5 rem, and a border radius to let's say 15 pixels. I think we also give the same properties to the input elements. We don't need to write two different selectors. We can make a group selector like this, right? Let's now refresh the page, and here we have it. Let me make the page zoom smaller like this. So you see our first layer is ready. Now we will start working with the second layer. So what I'm going to do, I will hide my first layer so that I could style and focus on the second layer. So we'll call the display to none. So display none is going to hide the entire layer. The second layer is actually exactly the same. So we can take all the properties from here and paste them in the second layer. The background color, choose red, and the font color is white. Let's check the output, and here you see the second layer. So we can increase the size of this welcome text, and in the HTML, here is our paragraph containing the welcome text. So we need to write a selector, red layer paragraph, and the font size is 1.5 rem. Let's now refresh the page, and here you see the font size is increased. Both the layers are ready. Now I want to put them to the center of the page. And to do that, we work with the body. Body must have a defined width and the height. And here I'm using a viewport width and the height. And after that, I will use flex to put the layers to the center of the page. Let me refresh, and here you see our layer is center aligned. And if I activate the blue layer and deactivate the red layer, refresh the page, and here you can see our blue layer is also center aligned. Now, before we move on to the JavaScript and finalize the application, we need a selector that controls the show and hide scenario. So in our CSS, we create a class selector with name hide, and it contains only one property, display, right? So when this hide class is applied to the element disappears. We now don't need display none to our red layer, and we are going to hide our red layer by using this hide class. So in the HTML, here we have our red layer, and we are adding the hide class to the layer. That's it. And if I refresh the page, you won't see any difference. And if I remove the hide class from the red layer and apply it to the blue layer, then our blue layer is hidden and this one is visible. Let me show you, and here you can see, right? So initially we need to hide our red layer. So let me reverse the changes. Now we are heading to the JavaScript. In the JavaScript, we are going to first make the selection. We need to select both the layers, input element, button, in the paragraph. So let's now do the selection in the JavaScript. So here we have the selection. And before I code further, I just want to make sure I'm not getting any error. So I will refresh my page and check the cancel. You can see our cancel is clean. That means everything is fine, right? And so now we are going to register the click event to the submit button. Here we go. Now think of what will happen when we make a click on the submit button. The first thing that will happen is read the text box value, right? Once we have read the text box value, the next thing that will happen is we are gonna hide the blue layer. So I will access blue layer classes using the class list property and will add a class hide, right? The third thing gonna happen is we will insert the name to the paragraph that belongs to the red layer. So to the paragraph, we will call the inner HTML property. And lastly, we are gonna show the red layer. And to do so, we only need to remove the hide class, right? So refresh the page, provide the name, click on the submit button, and there might be an error. Let's check the cancel. And here we see an error that relates to the red layer. Okay, so let me see what could be the error. This looks fine. And here we are selecting the layer. And the error is we forgot to put the period here because the red layer is a class selector. It's very strange sometimes that the browser doesn't show the error at the right time. If you remember, we checked these selections in the browser earlier, and the browser did not show any error at that time. Anyway, the error is gone. Let's check it out. Close the cancel, refresh the page, provide the name, click the submit, and here you see the second layer. And if you refresh, the JavaScript file loads again in the browser, and that means you will see the blue layer again. So friends, that was a simple JavaScript application, and I hope you like it. I will see you around in some other tutorials. Thanks for watching.